Hi, this is Brandon with Precision Defensive Solutions, and today I want to talk a little bit about the hammer-fired versus the striker-fired handguns. There's people that prefer one or the other. Let's talk about it a little bit. Over the weekend, I had the privilege to do a HK demo at our home range. We do one of those once a year. It was a great turnout. Some people got to experience some pretty cool guns. Some people went home with a new HK, and that's even better too. But there was one gentleman I talked to, and I understand where he's coming from, because I was in that boat several years ago, and I truly understand where he's coming from. And he said that he really had a hard time warming up to the striker fire guns because the triggers were gritty and spongy, and they weren't that great. And I totally understand that. Now, this guy had he and I were talking about it, and he was carrying a HK45C, which is a pretty nice gun. He said it had an LEM trigger in it, which that's what I've put on the table with the P30s, is the LEMs. And he had a USP Expert, which he really liked. So this guy was definitely in the hammer-fired club, and I said, and I asked him, I said, is that because that the hammer-fired triggers can be cleaned up to be crisper and more defined? And he said, yes. He said, it is. And I said, okay. I said, that makes sense to me. However, what we have in today's world, like with the new BP9A1s, is we have a very clean, very functional trigger on a striker fired gun. Now, all these guns are clear, but I'm going to show you that is clear. So this is a stock BP9F A1. This is just like the gun that I carry, with the exception of I do have more of a textured grip. I did a silicon carbide grip on mine. That's simply because my hands are so callous, it needs something to grab onto. However, so I want you to think about this. When we look at striker fired guns of the past, they were very heavy, gritty, just not good. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of Glock owners, wanted to update their triggers and stuff like that. And that's why Glock has such a huge aftermarket for aftermarket parts, is because people wanted to do that. They wanted to fix that grittiness in their trigger. Totally get it. Totally get it. I was, again, in that boat. So with this one, the take up, let's see if I can, is right there, breaks, and pretty short reset. The A1 trigger is very crisp. It is very crisp. It is very clean. It is very consistent, and something that I think is an absolute game changer on the striker fire market. You can feel the wall, but it's not so heavy and gritty that you can't get through the wall quickly. And it really doesn't take a lot of getting used to. But when we look at the older style trigger, so this is the LEM trigger, and I'll show you that this one is clean. Okay, so that one's clear. This one has a very long take up, but it's very soft. So it's light, tight, little pre-travel, and you can feel the stiffness of the spring about right there. So you can see how short that trigger actually is. Breaks through, breaks probably at about 5.5 pounds, sets, and comes out to reset and go back through. The reset on the stock P30L, I know some people don't like it, and that's why they do a Gray Guns short reset. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't mind that reset on that gun at all. The nice thing about the LEM trigger is it's long, so you're not going to accidentally pop something off, but it's not heavy. So if you don't like the double action, the traditional double action trigger where you're double and single both, this is a great thing. But it feels very much like the first generation VP9 trigger to me, as far as the weight and how clean it is. It's still a very, very good trigger. For a pre-cocked double action gun, it gives it like a single action feel once you hit that wall. But you got to press through that trigger, and that's not a big deal. It's really not. It's getting used to it. Now, if we look at the LTT versions, and this one again is clear. This one has a flat face trigger on it, which I'll be honest with you, I have not been a fan of flat face triggers before. I do like this one. Okay, it kind of forces my finger to be where it needs to be, and it definitely gives a good feel to it. Now it's got that same long take up, and it presses through, but it's even cleaner. So this being the LTT version, we're getting a cleaner trigger press and all. So if we look at the reset, still going, it's about the same. It's really not that much different. Coming from a guy that I don't shoot to reset, so I don't pin the trigger and then let out to reset. I let it all the way out and come back. So the reset means, yeah, not so much to me. I used to pin the trigger. I was significantly slower, and I would always throw my shot after I did that, especially at speed. So I learned to let it all the way out, come all the way through in the process of recoil, and all of a sudden my shots and my groupings are significantly better. So what am I getting at? Is one better than another? I don't think so. I think it boils down to a personal preference. All these guns have good triggers on them. All of these guns have specific purposes. To me, what I like, what is important to me, is making sure that in today's world that we can do an optic on it. And that's where LTT really shines with the P30 line and the USP line, and being able to add an optic to some pretty iconic and spectacular guns in their own right. But takes that older design and brings it into the modern world, and with that die-hard reliability, what an amazing mix. So, do I care what you shoot? No. If the gun fits your hand well, it's comfortable for you, it's comfortable for you to carry, because that's very important. If you're not going to carry it, why are you training with it? Unless it's just something fun. But if you're really training for self-defense, train with what you're going to carry. I mean, seriously. But it's got to fit your hand, and you've got to be able to shoot it well. If the gun is not safe, you shouldn't be carrying it anyway. It shouldn't even be a consideration. So I don't look at that as a qualification, because if it's not safe, why are you carrying it anyway? So, good quality gun, it's reliable, you shoot it well, fits your hand well, you're good to go. Hence why the VP9 and the P30s are two of my favorite guns. Now, I choose the VP9, I like the trigger a little bit better, I shoot it a little bit better, at least at speed. The P30s, I tend to shoot very, very accurately. You know, but the accuracy and the speed are about the same for me with both. So the speed curves out a little bit better for me on the VP9, and that's why I choose the VP9. But you do you. It has to work for you. Take care, everybody. Be safe. Hope everybody's doing well. And I hope you all have a very good Thanksgiving. Take care, everybody.